the girl who acquired a superpower when she came back from the dead. In the woods of Mississippi, there was an insignificant village whose existence was ignored even by the maps of the time. This Southern American village was called Tibbs, Tibbs, and was about 10 miles from the nearest town, Water Valley. No one had any reason to seek it out or visit it until October 1932. It suddenly became a magnet for large numbers of people who flocked to that corner of the South to be cured of various ailments for which the science had not been able to do the slightest thing. Many curious people also arrived, as well as those who wanted to have fun and make fun of the situation. Even those who came around went to find some logical or scientific explanation for the strange phenomenon which was taking place in this village. However, everyone, believers and non-believers alike, rushed there to see 17-year-old Laura Johnson, who after 5 hours lying dead in a coffin after a months-long illness, suddenly got up and cried, "I'm back from heaven." That's what she cried, "I'm back from heaven." In March 1931, the young lady had undergone surgery at a Memphis hospital. After several weeks of hospitalization, she was discharged. However, both before and after the operation, Laura suffered from nervous breakdowns. At one point, she was seized with such an acute attack that her mother urgently called Dr. Oliver. On August 18, the young woman was bedridden and unconscious, so her attending physician called another physician, Herbert Farr, to assist him, and they formed a council, but without reaching any positive result as to what to do for her. The girl who got a superpower when she came back from the dead. 17-year-old Laura Johnson, who came back from the dead. This first seizure was followed by many others, during which Laura Johnson bit her tongue so hard that it had turned it into a shapeless flesh, a huge open wound. Her doctor said there was nothing more they could do for her. This is where the role of the doctor stopped and the operation of her mother, Josephine, began. At 5 a.m. on August 16, according to the devastated mother, the 17-year-old girl stopped breathing, her heart stopped beating, and all traces of life disappeared. All this was confirmed by other members of the family, as well as by neighbors who helped the bereaved mother to shroud her child and prepare the coffin where the body was placed. Laura's rigid body remained for 5 hours in the coffin when the miracle happened, quote unquote, always according to the testimony of the same people. Relatives and friends were gathered in a single room where the twice widowed mother lived with her 2 daughters and son. Suddenly, and without any sign of warning, the girl opened her eyes, rose, and sat on her coffin. Then she got down completely from it and said, "I'm back from the heaven. I saw God and his angels. Everything was sparkling and dazzling. God spoke to me. He told me he was going to send me back to earth to help people." The astonished neighbors immediately called Dr. Oliver and the pastor of the Methodist church to which they belonged. Laura repeated her story to them and added that her cousin, who had died a long time ago, had come and taken her to heaven with her. She said, "I talked with the angels and with God. He told me to go to Water Valley and help 2 other cousins of mine who live there. I have now obtained the power to heal and teach the word of God. I personally do not have this power, but I get it from God through prayer," she said. Dr. Oliver noticed that the young lady's tongue, which had been torn into pieces during the nervous attacks, was completely healed and her illness was gone. The strangest thing, though, was that Laura was constantly standing and walking on the tips of her toes while her arms were constantly raised. Not even she could explain why. Then the doctor asked her to lower her hands and step on her heels. She did, but from that moment she was unable to move or speak. Other doctors called to examine her found that when her arms were not raised, she was in a state of paralysis. This phenomenon, however, after being meticulously studied by distinguished scientists, was found to have its partial explanation. Cases of people who die, quote unquote, and then come back to life are common in medical annals. A classic example is the mother of Robert E. Lee, one of the leaders of the American Civil War. His mother, Anne Hill Carter Lee, was resurrected a few hours after her burial. Science calls this rare phenomenon necrophany. The person afflicted by it seemingly dies, all signs of life disappearing for a few hours or even a few days. In these cases, according to doctors, the heart's function has not stopped but has slowed down so much that it cannot be heard. Emanuel Swedenborg, a famous Swedish mathematician and philosopher of the 18th century, had declared that he had seen God, heaven and hell, and then returned to life. With his teaching, he founded his own church, the New Jerusalem Church, which had many members, mainly in America. The 17-year-old Laura Johnson was neurotic and extremely religious. It was not excluded, therefore, that she had dreamed during her necrophany that she had gone to heaven and that she had conversed with God himself. This could be a reasonable interpretation of events, except that it did not explain everything. For example, it did not explain the complete recovery of her illness, nor the complete healing of her fragmented tongue. This news was published in the newspaper Nightly, on a Greek newspaper, on October 21st, 1932, from Strange Press. I've translated this for you from a Greek article, and this, of course, is completely true. Okay, so please tell me what you think. Actually, I've read that necrophany was very common in the past. That's why when they buried people, especially in Europe, for example, they used to have little bells inside the coffin, and a little string attached to the person's hand and feet, so that the string was attached to a bell outside of the coffin. And that's where the saying "saved by the bell" comes from, because many times when these people were revived after necrophany, they started gaining their senses again. The motion of their body would ring the bell, which was outside of the coffin, and the people in the cemetery would hear the bell ringing, and they would say, well, the person inside the coffin is alive. And they would exhume, take the person out to save his life again. So that's where the phrase "saved by the bell" comes from. So please leave your comments, and thank you for your support. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support, and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.